Let's start with some context. Minutes after being sworn in as finance minister on May 3rd, Devindranath Thakur was asked what's to become of those who already paid property taxes if in fact the incoming government plans to repeal the law.
I think it's logical that those persons will have to be refunded.
Fast forward under 2 weeks later and the Prime Minister is saying something else.
And refunds, I talked to Thakur. I think the only person mentioned refunds, I have never said that. Let Thakur tell me where he's finding the money for refunds. He's a Minister of Finance.
We always talk about China buying up Caribbean land. But let's get real. If the government can seize or punish you for not paying property tax, do you actually own anything? Because in Trinidad and Tobago today, you can inherit land, build on it, pass it down for generations, and still be at the mercy of a tax system that doesn't recognize your sweat, only your payments. Let's talk real numbers. Repeal versus reform. You're paying property tax, but you still can't say with confidence, this land is mine. If that truth stings even a little, stay with me, because right now in Trinidad and Tobago, you're paying property tax on a system that doesn't even guarantee you ownership. This discussion is not just about dollars and cents. It is about power. It is about ownership. And it is about how the legacy of colonialism continues to extract wealth from your pockets today. Let us begin at the beginning. Property taxes were not born from our communities. They were imposed, designed under colonial rule to extract wealth from the many and hand it to the few. At that time, taxes were not about fairness. They were about control, marking who could own and who would forever pay rent to a system that regarded them as second class. Fast forward to today, and while the plantation house may be gone, the system remains. Outdated valuations continue to punish families striving to build. The wealthy navigate around it with lawyers and loopholes. And the poorest citizens are told to simply trust the process, even as roofs leak and promised refunds disappear. We were told taxes would build our country. Instead, they have become a symbol of how far we have not come. Then came a plot twist. A few weeks ago, Finance Minister Devindranath Thakur announced that the property tax would be repealed and hinted that refunds might be issued to those who had already paid. This announcement was met with applause until Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar intervened like a concerned mother catching a child giving away lunch money. Talk to Thakur, she said. Let him tell me where he's finding that money. Thakur, standing right there, smiled and said nothing. Then Kamala added, my husband paid too. Now tell me, if my refund disappears, do I care what your husband paid? No, I want policy, not punchlines. Because when leadership turns confusion into comedy, the people are left with the bill and no answers. Let us move from jokes to numbers. Repealing the property tax will cost 900 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars. Refunding those who have already paid? That is another 80 to 100 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars this year. But here is the painful truth. Fixing the system, once and properly, would cost just 100 to 120 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars total. 50 to 75 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars to modernize valuations. 25 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars for digital receipts and transparency. 10 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars for meaningful consultations with the people. So ask yourself, are we willing to burn nearly $1 billion a year just to avoid fixing a broken system? Or will we invest once, ethically and responsibly, and rebuild public trust? Even if cost were not a factor, the system is fundamentally broken. It disproportionately punishes the poor while favoring the wealthy. There is no guarantee that the funds benefit local communities. It is rooted in colonial-era logic. Tax without consultation, expect compliance without accountability. When promises of refunds are made and then dismissed, it does not simply erode confidence. It reinforces the notion that this country was never built for all its people. Ethics in governance means this. This money will be invested in your child's future, and here is how you can see it. Not, well, my husband paid too. So what is the solution? Community-based valuation. Allow local boards, not political insiders, to determine property values with oversight from residents. Tax relief for first-time owners. Make homeownership accessible to more families. That is how legacies are built. Full transparency. Ensure every dollar is tracked, from the receipt you receive to the road it is intended to repair. Dignified repeal, if it must occur. If repeal is chosen, It must be done properly, refund fairly, communicate clearly, rebuild trust intentionally. Because right now, citizens are not merely paying taxes, they are paying for a system that laughs in their faces. At its core, this is not about money. It is about meaning. You do not truly belong until you own something. And ownership backed by fair systems creates dignity, legacy, and hope. Until those systems are just, property tax will not symbolize citizenship. It will symbolize servitude. And we did not fight to end colonial rule only to be colonized by our own institutions. If you are tired of systems that tax you without clarity, if you believe in reform rather than reaction, if you are ready for governance that respects your money and your dignity. Like this video. Comment below. Do you trust your country's property tax system? Share this with your community. Subscribe for more breakdowns that combine truth, love, and insight. Let us not just live in the Caribbean, let us own it together.
As for clarification this morning on the rationale for this apparent turnaround, Tanku would only say, I think the Prime Minister's words are unambiguous. But still, for clarity's sake, we sent questions to Minister Tanku via his communication department, where we again asked for the rationale for what seems to be a turnaround on refunds, how much money in property tax has been collected so far, and what happens to the money already paid by citizens. But the only response we got on behalf of Minister Tanku said, the Prime Minister has spoken and her words are clear. However, further information on the process will be disclosed in due course. All attempts to speak with Minister Tanku directly were unsuccessful. Now, commenting on these developments, former Prime Minister Stuart Young said he's observing this carefully as a citizen who also already paid his property tax. And this would be a good test case for a claim in the court for legitimate expectation of a refund. Economist Dr. Marlene Atz, meanwhile, does not believe the finance minister misspoke on the issue, but she said maybe his comment was premature. But from a financial and logistical standpoint, Dr. Atz believes the administrative cost and complexity of processing refunds at this scale may not be fiscally or operationally sensible. She said it goes beyond whether the state can afford it, but it must be considered if such a process is the best use of the ministry's staff and finances. Another economist, Dr. Ronald Ramkissoon, said while it is not unusual to get mixed messages from a new administration, he hopes sooner rather than later all ministers sing from the same hymn sheet, and for the public's sake there is clearer and proper messaging going forward. And political scientist Dr. Bishnu Raghunath says people would feel slighted by this apparent turnaround. He said maybe down the line there may be a mechanism for refunds in some way, but he too wants the government to not have mixed messaging going forward.
This is one of the things that the experienced members of the government and the cabinet will have to kind of rein in and ensure that members of cabinet as well as members of parliament act in the manner in which in a uniformed manner.
However, Dr. Raghunath said to the UNC administration's credit, it is so far keeping its intention of repealing property tax.
Am I missing something here? The same people that said that they wouldn't eliminate property taxes in Trinidad and Tobago are now questioning why there isn't an online payment platform for its payment. They have moved the fight from should we pay property taxes in Trinidad and Tobago to one where should we pay it online or via cash. It's almost like they're forcing us to choose between the lesser of two evils. I've taken the liberty of submitting a Freedom of Information Act request to get a breakdown of the property tax payments in Trinidad and Tobago based on location. Let's see if those who supported this current government organization pay the tax that they so wanted to have in Trinidad and Tobago, the one that they believe that will improve our standard of living.